Okay. If everybody's ready, we'll call this meeting to order. May I have a roll call, please? There are three.
Recording in progress.
We'll call this meeting to order. There are three, if I'm not mistaken, excused absences, but we'll call the roll.
Trustee DeBoer?
Here.
Connor?
Here.
Alquist?
Yes, I'm here.
President Vanderstill?
Here.
Trustees Truttschel, Pfeiffer, and Walschlager are excused this evening.
Thank you. If you'd all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, this will be led by Trustee Connor. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Anybody that would like to speak in public comments, please feel free to step towards the podium. Anybody on Zoom? Anyone else want to speak in public comments?
I'll mention something.
Can you please step towards the podium? Only because it picks it up for our recording.
Sure.
Thank you. And just state your name and address or what your affiliation is.
Sure. My name is Nina Fiedler. I live at 5425 State Road 83. I'm a resident of Hartland. And I work at St. Jerome Parish School as the school secretary. And we ask that you approve our event for next Tuesday night, Monday night, for next week, for our talent show for the kids. It's a good old-fashioned, borderline hokey talent show. So,
Okay, and you will also get a chance to be able to come up and speak when
Okay.
the item comes up.
thank you.
But thank you.
Thanks.
First item on our agenda is approval of the minutes for May 12th, 2025.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes for May 12th, 2025.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes from May 12th. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That motion is carried. As we move on, we have items that are related to vouchers. So first, we have consideration of contractor's application for payment number 1 in the amount of $146,451.94 to Zignego Company, Inc. for the 2025 Utilities Program.
Yeah, Zignego Company, Inc. has been our contractor for this year's utility project. We've been doing inspections and working along with them throughout the project, so we would recommend the payment of $146,451.94 for the first payment to Zignego Company, Inc.
I'll make a motion to approve the application for payment number 1 in the amount of $146,451.94 to Zignego, if that's pronounced right, Company Incorporated for the 2025 Utilities Program.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the payment to Zignego Company, Inc. for the 2025 Utilities Program for $146,451.94. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? That motion is carried. Now we have consideration of a contractor's application for payment number 1 in the amount of $99,668.87 to Wolf Paving Company, Inc. for the 2025 paving program.
So yeah, Wolf Paving Company has been working on our paving program this year. The most recent work that they've done is on East Park over here, and that looks good, and we've done an inspection of that as well, and staff recommends making the initial payment of $99,668.87 to Wolf Paving.
I'll make a motion to approve the contractor application for payment number 1 in the amount of $99,668.87 to Wolf Paving for the 2025 paving program.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the payment to Wolf Paving Company, Inc. This is payment number 1 in the amount of $99,668.87 for the 2025 paving program. Any discussion?
Tom, that went very smooth, didn't it? A lot better than
Yes.
their last issue.
Yeah, no, we had R&M out there and staff, and everything went good. We had a close eye on this project because of the last project, that we discussed last board meeting when the contract was awarded. So working with them, now we're gonna be working on West Capitol and, West Park, starting next week, Monday.
Just going off of what Tim was asking, just asking for clarity, which specific, are we referring to the Dixon Park thing from last year? Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Now, there was a change on this? Or there was not a change?
No, there was no change, nope. Everything's going as, planned and actually sticking to schedule, and knock on wood, the rain, doesn't hold us back or anything like that, but everything's been going smooth so far.
Awesome. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That motion is carried. I am gonna, Ryan's on Zoom also, but Tom, I'm gonna kinda defer to you. So now as we take on the vouchers, now the reason we took those first two items is because those are incorporated into the vouchers we have in front of us, correct? Just wanted to clarify. So now we have a consideration for vouchers for payment, in the amount of $363,646.03.
I'll make a motion to approve the vouchers payment in the amount of $363,646.03.
And
It's been moved and seconded to approve the payment of the vouchers in the amount of $363,646.03. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? That motion is carried. Now we have review and consideration of items that are related to licenses and permits. We have consideration of a special event application for St. Jerome School for June 2nd, 2025. I know they spoke already in public comments, but if you could just step towards the podium in case anyone has any questions. They may not, you've already presented, but if anybody does have any questions for,
Nina.
Nina, please feel free to ask them.
This was turned in too late to meet the park board, so,
that is correct.
okay.
Opinion on that, Tim?
No,
None?
anybody that wants to use the Fine Arts Center is fine with me.
You're good with it?
Yeah, well,
Okay. Anybody else have any issue with that?
I'll make a motion to approve the special event application by St. Jerome School for June 2nd, 2025.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the special event application for St. Jerome School for June 2nd, 2025. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you
Great.
very much.
Thank you, you're all invited.
Thank you.
What time is the play?
6 o'clock.
How many people?
Oh, I'd say it'll be around 100. I'm just estimating.
Awesome.
Mostly parents and siblings.
Good luck.
That's the good news. The bad news is you have to stay and watch the rest of the meeting.
Well, there's something I might stay and listen to.
You know, he is kidding.
No, I'm kidding.
Well, there is something I might listen to.
Oh,
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for choosing our Fine Arts Center. We now have a consideration of bartender license and applications. We have two of them on there. If anybody wants to take them separately, they can. If they want to take them one at a time, they can. Or if they want to take them all at once, they can. We have Heidi Wise and Diane Raabe, I'm guessing. Chief, anything you want to add on these?
So I did approve both of these applications per the background, as we would typically do. The only thing to note is, one, there were things in the background, so it needs to come to the board, and our village clerk can't just approve it. But then, two, there just were some, I would call minor missing but related items. And I don't think there was ill intent, but I think just some oversight and maybe semantics on wording on what applies that should to be listed and what does not. So for Heidi Wise, I did sign off on the application. She did not list her first offense OWI in the application. However, she did list her second offense OWI and labeled it as such. So she's labeling it second offense. There had to be a first offense that happened to make that the second offense. And they were fairly old. And then, are you doing these one at a time, or do you want to hear about the second one right away?
Go with the second.
Yeah,
one.
you can go with it
And
right
then,
away, so we have the information.
Raabe, I approved this application as well, but the applicant did not disclose the OWI conviction in Greenfield on March 26, 1997. Our paperwork says any conviction, so that should have obviously been listed. She did have a OWI arrest in Waukesha in 2017. Both of these are considered first offense because of the statutory language that they didn't happen within 10 years of each other. So she kind of has two first offense, if that makes any sense. She listed the one, but not the other. So again, I don't know if it was ill intent or because that one was almost 30 years old, she forgot about it or what, but again, I would approve it if it was disclosed. We just bring it to your attention so you
Do
understand.
you ever follow up with them?
I think Sandy
Oh, no, I
followed
mean,
up
with what your findings and kind of say, hey, you left this out just to kind of get a little detail?
Yeah,
I do follow
Oh,
up
you
in
do?
in a
Okay.
phone call with them and go over it.
What kind of feedback did they give you? And
For
I guess I
both
don't know
of
how you
these-
forget this.
Exactly. No, both of these, like as Chief explained, it's,
oversight semantics was the explanation, but we've had people pull their applications in the past. We follow up with every one of them, either typically Sandy, or sometimes if it's a weird, complicated situation, I would reach out to them, but everyone we do follow up with. Sometimes they pull their application, sometimes they try to explain it. This one, I do think there was just some time involved and some confusion, especially that one listed it as a second offense, so I don't think she was trying to be sneaky about it.
Well, this isn't, I guess this isn't the first time it's happened. I just wondered, is the wording confusing or
Yes.
from the state or whatever?
I can provide some guidance on that.
Yes?
The state of Wisconsin used to keep drunk drive DUI on, or OWI, whichever it is, on your license on your record for 10 years, and then it would drop off. Kind of like when you have your insurance and they go and look, and all of a sudden they're like, okay, anything after that? Well, even more than that, it literally dropped off. So it wasn't on your history, other than like if you're in a police agency that's looking. And somewhere in 97 and 98, they changed that law, the Senate Assembly, and it went up to the governor, and was signed into law, that now OWI, DUI would stay on your record indefinitely for your entire life. So they had to deal with all the people that fall in between that gap. The people that had already had it fall off, yeah, those fall off, but what if you got convicted of that OWI or DUI in that interim? And what they came up with, because someone may have been pulled over before the law went into place, but convicted after, well, what they did to make up for that is they said, okay, anybody that falls in that gap, if it's your first, that's your first. And if you go 10 years without receiving another DUI or OWI, your next one is also your first. So the first one doesn't fall off, but it's kind of set on the shelf. And if you only got one more, then yes, you would go through your life having two firsts. But if you at any time got a second after getting that second first, that second becomes your third. I know that's confusing, but you would never have a second. You would only have two firsts and a third. Chief, if you want to back me up on that.
If that sounds confusing, it's because it is.
Yep, it is.
We have like a very in-depth flow chart to try to follow, and it's a pain even for us, because there's a
Yep.
lot of different, there's a kid under 16, if it's a property damage, if it's a personal injury act, there's all this stuff that can happen that can make it criminal or not, and it's a very complicated set of statutes, and it changes all the time.
Right. And they did make it complicated by trying to make up for this gap instead of just being like, here, we'll do this. But anyways, that's,
The other issue that comes up frequently is just like the semantics of it. Sometimes they're like, well, first offense, I just got a ticket. I didn't know I had to disclose that because it wasn't a crime. But it specifically says, like, have you ever been convicted of this? So
So it's not really somebody trying to pull a fast one over us.
I think sometimes it
Sometimes,
is, and
yeah.
I brought
Yeah.
those to your attention. I think this one was just oversight. Because if they would have told us the truth, I would have approved these for how old the violations were.
I agree with Chief because I think our wording on the form is very clear. It doesn't say based on state law or in the last 10 years. It closely states list all of your convictions for these things. It doesn't say, you know, I mean, I can understand where someone may get confused, but I would never say that 100% of the people just were confused and only put the one, because you know you got it, you know.
Then I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve the bartender license applications for both Heidi Wise and Diane Raabe.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the bartender's license applications for Heidi Wise and Diane Raabe. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those licenses are approved. Did I say all opposed? I don't think I did. All opposed? No one was opposed. Now we got items referred from Plan Commission on May 19th. We have the Village Board first reading for proposed PUD development amendment for the project, whose approval is being sought by Three Leaf Development on property tax key HAV 0423981056, located on Campus Drive. The things that the Village Board will have to review are A, proposed amendments of preliminary site and building plans for senior living development going from 124 units from the previous 120 units. B, a request by the developer to amend the PUD to waive all impact fees, sewer connection, and regional sewer availability charge fees totaling approximately $382,874. You'll hear, I believe, from the developer on that item because we dealt with Plan Commission, just so you guys know what we're hearing. They're not, it's a different verbiage on whether they're looking for a total waiver or some waiver. And then we have the last item, C, consideration of setting a date for the public hearing for July 14th, 2025. We do have the person that is developing that site or seeking approval to develop that site here, Mr. Ford. If you'd like to add anything for the board, feel free.
Good evening, thanks, Jeff. Just before we get started, and I'll keep this brief because I know.
John, for the record, can you just say your name and that you're representing Three
Sorry, I
Leaf?
think I know this by now. John Ford with Three Leaf Development. Just want to clarify, Jeff, I know when you just read that off, you stated that we're seeking waiver of all impact fees. I know Sandy, you and I had a.
Yeah, I
email
did correct the one on the,
Okay.
online, and I just made copies of the
Sure.
old version. So the word all was removed, because it is not, that sum of $382,874 is, that's not the total amount of fees.
And I do want to clear, that's why I said, when you came up, they'll hear that,
Got it.
even though the word all is there because it's been carried through, it's not necessarily all.
Yeah. Well, good evening. I know who's ever controlling the slides, obviously, and I provided in the packets kind of the detail. We've been through this a couple different times. I'm happy to go into each of these slides, each of the detail for how we're looking at this, but I thought tonight it'd be a little bit more of the Cliff Note version, so to speak, and certainly happy to answer any questions that any of you may have. Obviously, I think we're all in agreement this would be an impactful and very much needed project here for the community of Hartland and also the greater Lake Country area. There's really two components of what we're requesting this evening. One is on the design side, and that's an increase of 6 units from the previous approved 118 units, although the PUD agreement technically stated a maximum of 120. That's the reason for the difference. We are currently at 124 units in total. Happy to go through those slides. I know we talked about it previously, but really it's on the slides here. But
If you don't mind me, only because it already went through the board once, I just do want to ask, is there anyone on the board that is opposed to the additional units or has questions or concerns about it? Mr. Hallquist?
No? Well, do you want me to make a motion
I
on
was just,
A?
I'm only doing this just for, because it
That's
could
fine.
get confusing
Yeah.
if we get too much in the mix. So, John, I'm sorry to stop you. I'm just gonna kind of take them item, like if that one is going, then, sure, that'd be great, Tim.
Okay, I'll make a motion
Hold on, no motions tonight, it's only first reading.
Okay, so what would take my, sorry, Tim, that's
I
my,
have spoken.
Tim, that's my fault. Okay. So this is only a first reading, so there's not gonna be any motions tonight, but we got clarity on the units. Okay.
Thanks,
My fault,
Dancing
Ryan,
Queen.
sorry about that. John, sorry for interrupting.
So Tim, you said God has spoken, so Ryan is God?
Yes,
Got it, all right.
either that or Dancing Queen, one of the two. That's an inside joke.
Obviously, the second component is more on the financial side, in order for us to make this project financially feasible. We know there's a growing significant supply gap related to senior housing. I know we talked about it last time, but the baby boomers are turning age 80 here in the next year. That will drive a significant demand as we go forward over the next number of years. We also know that family want to live nearby family. If you don't have solid senior housing options, it will have a trickle-down economic factor to other types of housing, including single-family and multifamily, if their loved ones can't live in a relatively close proximity. We have done, Three Leaf, our architect, our entire team, our civil engineers here this evening as well. We have done everything that we can to make this project financially feasible over the last number of months since the previous approval. That includes, on the construction side, reducing cost with our general contractor through some value engineering without sacrificing the quality of the project. From a design standpoint, obviously we talked about adding the 6 additional units. That plays into the revenue side of things to increase revenue for that. And also we went out from a competitive set to make sure that we are right in line with what the competitive set is from a revenue standpoint. And last, we worked with our operator, Cedar Communities, to really get as efficient as possible from an operating expense standpoint. As you can see on the slide, we trimmed approximately $25,000 per unit, or close to $3 million. When we look at the overall financial feasibility of the project, we believe we currently have a financial gap of approximately $800,000, which is really what is needed when we talk about a financial gap in order to obtain both debt and equity financing on the project. Part of this gap is due to the site challenges overall, including topography, as well as the desire to have fire access all the way around the building. On the next slide, one more. There's a summary of some of the impactful costs, totaling approximately $540,000 in additional site work. Also, as discussed at Plan Commission, this use really does not fit your current impact fee schedule, or structure, I should say, due to the reduced overall density and utility usage. We currently estimate for the senior use, which, just a reminder, this is full continuum of care, so it includes memory care, assisted living, and independent living, that on average, and this is a lot of industry statistics as well, that we would have approximately 1.2 people per unit in this development. Industry statistics by TRIO, Matt Bailey's is here as well, indicate typically for seniors, typical industry statistics on typical housing is around 3.5 people per unit. If you compare the 1.2 versus a 3.5, we estimate our actual usage of utilities would be about 37% of what a single family or multifamily unit would be due to the reduced actual usage of utilities. Rooker Milke provided you a report, you may recall, back in October of 2023 on impact fees, where they document on page 5, and I quote, "The U.S. Consensus Bureau estimates an average of 2.53 persons per household here in Hartland." Using this statistic, we'd still be at just under 50% utility usage compared to the alternatives for housing. Given the overall complexity, this PUD, which provides developer and village flexibility and leeway on specifics. One of the Plan Commission members last week really said it pretty well, I think. Indicated Hartland has really 2 impact or utility fee schedules currently. One is commercial and one is housing. Senior doesn't really fall into either of these categories, but rather it's a hybrid based on this Plan Commission member's opinion. In our opinion, this waiver would not set any precedent compared to typical single-family or multifamily uses here in Hartland due to that hybrid factor and us using utilities that, in our estimation, are 37% of what you're actually charging for impact fees. So I just want to be very clear about what our proposal and what our request is here this evening. We will pay 100% of all law impact fees. We will pay 100% of all fire impact fees. We'll pay 100% of all DPW impact fees. The only impact fees we're requesting a waiver on, because vast majority of seniors don't necessarily use those services, are the library and parks. Those are the only two impact fees that we're requesting a waiver on. The Del Hart utility fees will also pay 100% of the Del Hart utility fees. The village and regional utility fees, we are then requesting that we are charged essentially what we're actually anticipated to use from a utility standpoint, in this case, 37% of the total. So if you look at the total numbers, the total impact fees are estimated at $1.265 million. We are proposing that we would pay $882,000, or about 70% of the total. And then we're asking for a waiver from Hartland of the $382,000, which is about 30% of the total. While that's a waiver, I would suggest we're asking you to approve what we're actually using for utilities, not being lumped into a use that typically is much higher at either 2.5 or 3.5 people per unit or per household, when we have 1.2 on average within the senior. So just in conclusion, I'll leave you with this thought, or a few key bullet points. This project is nearly a $50 million project, obviously to meet a very growing need, both here in around the surrounding area. We aren't asking the village to come up with or contribute any dollars to this project whatsoever. Due to the special considerations of this specialized project, approval of such waiver would not set any type of precedent. We're simply asking to charge this project utility impact fees based on the actual estimated use for senior that's known in the industry, not the current overall average, which has more than double the occupants that senior would have. The $382,000 waiver request that I mentioned represents less than 1% of the total project costs. The village doesn't have to come up with any money up front. The calculation is actual usage versus average. In addition, this project would generate between $2 and $3 million of taxes, all while over the next 10 years, while the village would not have to collect any garbage, plow any snow, or install any roads. And with that, I'll answer any questions that you may have.
For the board, I just want to throw in a few things that came up at Plan Commission, just so that everybody has the information, or at least the two that are here that aren't on Plan Commission. What was being referred to by Mr. Ford was that we had a Plan Commission member that brought up that if this was a hospital, they would not be charged these fees. And if it's commercial, or if it's housing, so apartment or condo or single-family house, they have to pay the full fees. And the word hybrid came up because there are nurses that are working with people in some parts of this facility. John, you'd have to explain it a little more, but it's sectioned off where you have people that are kind of just living in their units, but they're part of the facility and are able to go and eat and that kind of thing. And then there's people all the way up to memory care and where they need a whole lot of help, and they have nurses in there. So also that came from the Plan Commission is that it is in our code that should we say no, the person asking, the company asking does have the ability to come back and do an appeal, and appeal the ruling, and then gets to sit and show why, gets to show this is the usage based on numbers, and numbers were presented that show that it sounded accurate, but they can show that we should only be paying for what we use, and if they show that, then that would be the number anyways. And I'm just trying to bring everybody up to speed from Plan Commission. They have cut over $3 million to try to make it feasible, plus adding on, they took away their, I believe it's the clubhouse room, right, or a big patio, whatever it was, something was cut off to add those extra units. Tim, if I'm missing anything, please jump in. And it was kind of a mixed bag on whether to allow it or not. Some of the things that were talked about were precedent and things like that. So I guess I do have one more question with this where I want clarity for the board. Ryan, you're on. The PUD as it's written Is this part of the PUD as it's written? The reason I'm saying that is you said no vote tonight, but some direction has to be given on how this moves forward, correct?
Yeah, truly, I mean, that's up to the board if they want to waive any portion of the fees or not. The next item that you have on the agenda is actually to put language in the code under PUDs that essentially gives the board opportunity to waive fees should you desire. Because currently in our code, we don't have anything that would
Oh, I
allow
see.
this or.
Okay, I
So
see,
the
because
next
you're
item
saying
on the
that next
agenda, we're
item
gonna
is to
go through
request to amend the PUD. So currently, the wording in there is that they pay all the fees.
Correct.
Got it, understood. So with that, if the board has any questions for the presenter, I'm gonna request, even though we don't have to, so Ryan, I'm not stepping on your toes here, but I would request a vote by the board if there's gonna be direction to change anything in that PUD.
So would we, since that's the next item and we're changing the POD, correct?
If we were to make a motion to do so.
So should we, make the change first and then vote on this?
I think that we would take a motion in a second to, honor the request of Three Leaf, which would then say the impact fees they are paying would be, you have the numbers, you know them better than I
So
do.
hold on real quick. The only issue is this is the first reading. So the amendment takes 2 plan commission meetings and at least 2 village board meetings.
Okay, so how,
I would,
to put teeth into it, how do I direct, how do we
direct?
direct anyone to make a change to the PUD if we don't take a vote?
Because you're gonna, at the very end, and after the next meeting, you would vote to approve item A and item B, and then I would amend the PUD. And we would sign it.
Okay, so at this meeting, after this meeting, the wording will not change, it will stay the same moving forward.
It'll be that it's a second reading and you guys could suspend the rules to approve item A and item B, or go to the third reading.
No, I understand that, but I'm saying on the second reading, will it have the same verbiage? And I'm sorry for my confusion. On the second reading, will the verbiage be the same, stating that all impact fees get made?
Yeah, so once you guys approve, if you guys motion to approve item A and item B, I would go in and I would amend those 2 items in the PUD to say from 120 units to 124. And I would update the section on impact fees and sewer and RSAC fees to be whatever you guys vote for. And then Mr. Ford and his team would look at it, approve it, and then we would sign it and record it with the county.
Okay, and again, I'm sorry for my confusion, but basically, so when we make a motion for the public hearing, we would be making a motion for the public hearing if someone were to make it, saying, with the changes made from item A and item B. Is that accurate?
You're just doing, I think Mr. Ford deserves to know if there's interest in item B. If
That's
you
why
guys
I'm
have-
asking, kinda.
Yeah, you're not voting on that, but I think if you guys move the next item on the agenda forward, I think that's saying that you have a desire to alter the impact fees for this project.
Okay, understood.
Really, all there is to do today is set the public hearing, which has to be a minimum of 30 days, and that would be in the July meeting, and then you could suspend the rules and approve that and the next item if you go that way.
Right, or move on to the third, yep, okay, got it, thank you.
Yep.
So what Ryan is basically saying is whatever direction the board gives today, obviously, because that's why there's 3 readings, because changes get made throughout that whole process. That's why, when we're making changes like this. So I do hear what he's saying. It doesn't, it's fluid throughout the process based on public input. That's why there's public hearing and board input, things like that, so. But as Ryan said, I think that there would be it's appropriate that the person requesting would have some direction or some indication on, whether if this could cause them to not do the project, it'd be good if they had an indication on whether or not this is gonna go that way or not.
If there are any questions, Matt Bailey, our civil engineer here, is here as well, just with regards to how we came up with that calculation of utility usage in the 37%.
I know you guys weren't at plan commission, so I didn't know if you.
Well, I think it's kind of hard for Mr. Ford to read, since there's only 4 of us here, there's 3 that aren't here.
Right.
So, I'm willing to go forward with this, but, there's 3 people that aren't. Who knows?
That's
who
right.
knows what
I was gonna end up saying, you're kinda getting a definite maybe. I mean, that's the best way that I can say it because it's not guaranteed, but it's,
Yeah, I don't think there's any other way to navigate it.
I think that the Plan Commission member that brought up the hybrid did bring up a good point. It's something that I think we'll be looking at Plan Commission and the Village Board in the future. How do we handle facilities like that? We know there's a need in Heartland. At the same time, whether or not we want to waive those fees or, but it's something that we need to look into facilities like this because you have nurses working with people on a constant basis where nurses are inside of a building. But like I said, if it's a hospital, they don't pay those fees. If it's an apartment, they pay the fees, so it kind of falls in a gap there. It's a hybrid. So,
Right.
and based on the appeal process, that's what makes me say, yes, I'm okay with it, because on an appeal process, if they were to appeal, and like he said, there's civil engineers here at Plan Commission, they showed us the numbers that they were taking, which are based on averages, and I don't remember if it's from the entire state or whether it's from just close municipalities, but showing that there's less usage just because of the kind of things that happen at these facilities. You have people passing away, and it might take 2 months to get them filled. You have people that are using much less water. They may need sponge bath, all those things. Where it's not like my house where we're blowing through lots and lots of water.
So can I make a motion for the public hearing then?
You can.
Okay, I'll make a motion to set the date for the public hearing for July 14th, 2025.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. It's been moved and seconded to set the public hearing. John, one thing, how many employees are at the facility? Have you guys looked into how many?
It's estimated around 40, low 40s,
Okay,
full-time employees,
okay.
full-time equivalents. There'll be obviously some
No,
full-time,
and that includes
some
people making
part-time.
food and people that are doing
Yeah,
like
that's
nursing.
about-
I hate to call it just nursing staff, but medical staff.
Correct,
people
it'll be
that have-
between 40 and 45 full-time equivalents.
Okay,
That's obviously a stabilization.
Sure.
Day one, there wouldn't be, right? There's a
Right.
period of leasing of the units.
Yep.
But yes, it's stabilization.
sure. Understood. Anybody have anything else?
Good.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the public hearing for July 14th, 2025. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now, there's another first reading. We have a consideration of a first reading for an ordinance number 05272025-A, an ordinance amending section 46-801 of the Village of Heartland Code of Ordinances regulating PUD Planned Unit Development Overlay District. Ryan, do you want to jump on there?
Yeah, so just kind of as I mentioned, this is just one that is ultimately puts language in there so that you guys during a PUD, in a PUD you can amend a lot. This would just allow you to amend any of those fees that you would desire.
Understood. So it's giving the board, it's clarifying the board's authority to make those amendments.
Correct. Again, just a first reading, so that's it.
Okay. Anybody have anything to throw in on the first reading? No? Okay. Now we have consideration of a first reading for ordinance number 05272025. This is an ordinance amending section 22-168 through 22-173 and creating section 174 of the Village of Heartland Code of Ordinances regulating mobile food vendors. Anybody have anything that they want to say regarding that first reading? Ryan, you want to give a quick brief?
Yeah, I don't have it in front of me, but in discussions with the president, with the clerk, we put together something just on paper. It's essentially all parks and then, or 4 of our parks. Nixon Park would be Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday for at least this year. Could change in future years. And then I believe you guys have the fees in front of you. I don't have them in front of me, but I believe Sandy, I, and the president went through 5 or 6 versions to try and get it to you, and it can be changed if anybody wants anything changed.
Anybody?
I've got a couple questions.
Sure.
Oh, do you have a question?
Just had a quick comment.
Go ahead.
And then, I guess a point of discussion for the board. For the change, we have a change of the ordinance number of 22-173 to 22-174, because we added a section. We just gotta make sure we do that in the appendix, because that gives us the ability to file the citation, because right now Appendix B still has it under 22-173. So we'll have to change that if this were to get approved in its current form. Just didn't want that to get missed. And then the point of discussion for the board is I see there's some areas designated in the parks for the food trucks to go. Some of those are legal parking spots. What would be your thoughts if those were parked in by cars and then the food truck gets there and they're not moving, or there's no parking left or whatever else?
I think we could manage that on our calendar where we'd be tracking, how many, all the parks and how many food vendors we would have. Public Works would have to cone that off.
Cone it off.
early in
Okay,
the day.
that's all I was curious on.
Okay. A couple questions I had is just curious why the way it was carved out, number one, why we segregated out the food cart and made specifications there, poundage, size and everything, versus just leaving it under the umbrella of mobile food establishment.
The thought process there, Rick, just in throwing it out, is because it's such a small amount based on what we've had coming to Hartland. When you have a whole food truck coming in, they can handle, whether it's a food truck or food trailer, just serving food from a trailer, or, and you have a food push cart, there seems to be a very big distinction there. That was the thought process. That doesn't mean that can't be changed. But if someone's coming in, and I'm gonna say, you see these more so in the cities, but if someone has a push cart where they make like brats and hot dogs right on scene, and they put some ketchup on and they put onions on it, but it's just a push cart, it's much different than, just based on what they can carry and what they can store, it's much different for the village than someone bringing in a food trailer, parking it in parking spots. If we have 4 parking spots that are broken out or checked off for a food trailer, and someone's gonna just go there with a little cart that takes only half of a parking spot, the thought process was it's just very different. Someone's walking around through the parks and, pushing a cart.
So I guess then, to that point, if we had in here, and I don't know exactly where the verbiage is, but we talked about a max of like 2 food trucks. Would that be constituted as one of them, or are we carving it out saying we could have 2 food trucks, but the food cart does not constitute as a food truck because it's carved out, so that could be in addition to whatever total number of food trucks we allow in a park at one time?
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say that the language is that there's no more than 2 mobile food vendors, so a food cart would count as a vendor.
That's what my thought was, but I didn't know when we were carving this out if that was
And
the intent.
but now, because we're on it, we can change that language also, because the idea with the food cart, and again, this is just discussion, was just that there isn't that many of them, but also, this is gonna lead into something even more, but they can kind of go and walk around in the parks, kind of whenever they want. It's not the same as coming and setting up, because a food truck or trailer has to be self-sufficient. They might have a generator running. We gotta have designated spots for them to go. With a food cart, they're pushing it.
No, I
and-
get that,
and
I
doing
just
that
didn't
kind of
know
thing.
what the intent was.
But I'm saying the board should, I think, make clarification on if they want the food carts not to be, because,
not to fall
because right
under-
now, the food cart, the push cart, they're just paying a fee where they can go and walk, because they might be up at Centennial because there's an event going on there, or they might be, not an event like with an event permit, but there might be games going on. Where with a food truck, those are designated as in because that person's gonna go and buy that food knowing that, hey, we're selling that day, and we just bought 600 pounds of meat because we're gonna be selling and we paid a fee so that we can be selling. Where with the food cart, if they show up and no one wants to buy their stuff because they're buying from the food, it's like, that's on them.
Okay.
That's on them. And most of that is simply going on what's come before Hartland so far. You could have someone with a food cart that's going around selling subs, where they're just pushing the cart. It's not necessarily just ice cream, that's just what we've seen come to us so far in Hartland.
Yeah, the only other question I had is, on section 22-172, we got food truck trailers are allowed in Centennial, Pembroke, and Hartbrook pretty much all the time versus we limited Nixon just to Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
So the idea was that it appeared that a majority of the board wanted to, for this year, honor the contract of the beer garden and then prep for next year. So that would obviously be a change that would happen again, where then that would be relieved. But because we already have a contract in place, that would, otherwise, and I'm only being honest on what the idea, every presentation we've had here, no one's like, hey, I want to go to other parks, I want to just go make money. It's, when are you going to be open? When the beer garden's open. When do you want to operate? Whenever the beer garden's open. I'm just being honest.
No, I get it.
So we're trying to open it up that if a food truck wants to come, and I'll just come out and say, I hate to, if some really, really well-known smoking truck wants to come that creates a draw just on their own from their Facebook page and they want to go to Pembroke Park or they want to go to Centennial Park where people are going to drive there, or any of our local businesses that have it, and they want to go and say, hey, come and get the food, that they can do it. But we do have a contract in place. We have a 2-year contract in place, but we did put the wording in for the beer garden, we have a 2-year contract in place, but we did put that would be reviewed after 1 year. So based on the wording that came from what seemed like the majority last time, I'm just letting you know that's why it was written that way, that it's like this year we'll go through on the contract we have. We maintain the integrity of the board because we signed a contract, and then we'll open that up for next year because a change will need to be made, or either way the board's going to have to look at that because I'm going to be bringing it up and we're going to be working on it throughout the year. The number of food trucks that we're going to allow, but then that would just open up and we would literally omit the except Nixon Park.
Okay.
But we also have the HA we're thinking of, that's why we're omitting parks. The HA is a not-for-profit organization that if, I would have to defer to Leo, I think, in the room, or Tim. I believe it's since the 1960s. When you talk about putting up lights, I believe those are the old Nixon Park lights. I mean, it's a lot of their own money. It is a not-for-profit organization. It's worked in tandem with Hartland. I believe that 2 generations ago, there was people that were pouring their own concrete. Leo, correct me if I'm wrong, or Tim. They have their own thing going on there. And I understand that comes from the fact that Hartland used to be much smaller. So most people that were on the board were also part of the Rotary, we're also part of the Chamber, and we're also part of the HA. And Hartland's gotten bigger now, but in a way they've been grandfathered in. They do serve food down there and have events down there. They also serve drink and things like that. And without us going to the HA and notifying them, considering the 60-year background and, in a sense, partnership between not only the parks but also the village board, it seemed inappropriate because that would be another location where a food truck would be like, okay, I'll just go park down there, we'll draw those sales.
Okay, but then I guess, then I'm still confused on this because then you say the food cart can be there any day of the week, and I get it right now, the only food cart we had is ice cream. But you just said that if a food cart wanted to bring food, hot dogs and all that, then to me that's contradicting what the contract says, there's no other food in there from anybody else. Now they're just putting the food in a different size vehicle that's allowed to go there, but it's still not honoring the contract if in fact we're gonna be honoring the contract as stated.
I was just simply clarifying to you why it was written that way.
You just opened it up that I could bring a food cart down there right now and not have
Yeah.
ice cream, but have food. And to me, what is different if I'm selling food out of a food cart or I'm selling food out of a food truck or trailer against the contract that we said for the first year we weren't gonna do anything?
2 things. If you go and you are walking around with a food cart pushing it around with shakes or with sandwiches, okay, and you're pushing it around, you're walking around the park, but you're not walking through the beer garden, and there's also not designated spots that need to be roped off, where you need to be able to pull in and have your trailer
Get
there.
that, but the concept is contradicting.
If you have 800, 600 pounds of meat versus if you have 30.
Now we need to put in here how much meat you have. I
Well, we
mean,
put weights on the carts.
I get that, but I'm just saying, it's very confusing, and I just don't think it makes a lot of sense. Either they can do food or they can't do food, it shouldn't matter. They can do food, but only if you have a cart this size or this dimensions. It's, according to what you said, if we're honoring the contract, that means no food. So that means they have the exclusive of food. If we put a food truck or food trailer, then we gotta say that, okay, we're gonna not honor the contract, but we're gonna do it a certain way. But if we put a food cart down there, then it's irrelevant what the contract says.
We can agree to disagree. I don't agree with you that a truck that comes in is gonna serve $1,200 worth of food versus a
But
cart
now you're
that's gonna
setting limits
serve.
of dollar amounts or pounds of food, but the point is, either it's food or it's not food.
I don't live in the black and white world that you're referring to, because there's a big difference between someone that's pushing a hot dog cart or a ice cream cart. It may not be to you, but it is to me.
Okay.
We can agree, we don't have to agree.
Right, but so I don't disagree, I disagree with this, the way it's written, so I guess what I'm
Okay.
saying, we need to clarify, because, like I said, we put a lot of time in the first one, now we're gonna go back and do this, now we're gonna put in here stipulation, we're gonna do it, but we're gonna review it again next year, why don't we just fix it this year and be done with it?
To be quite frank with you, I can give you my opinion,
But I
because
mean-
I don't think that it's appropriate that the village government, someone goes, and if they're getting a business running, comes and says, you know what, I'm just gonna make most of my money off of the beer garden, because the village already has that running.
I guess it shouldn't matter what a person said, it should be, do we allow trucks down there, and I thought we were gonna allow
But that
them down.
isn't, Rick, in my opinion, that's not what happened, because it started getting, you wanna talk about differences. All of a sudden, you got a village business, Culver's, can't take a food truck, chain. Cousins, can't take a food truck, Wisconsin-owned business, chain. So when it started out saying, let's have a bunch of food trucks, it got real clear, real fast what was happening. First, get your foot in the door, and then
then we need to-
get yourself in, and then close it and get the latches shut.
But then the same thing, we have another business with a food cart that we allowed in.
That's
to me,
been
that's-
serving for how long?
But it doesn't matter, two wrongs don't make a right, it's contradicting, either we honor the contract that she gets all the food, ice cream is food, or we open it up for food.
Yeah,
You
and-
can't say, well, open up for food if it's this kind of food and not this kind of food, I think that's where the conflict is.
And I'm,
Like I said, the last email that I really felt that was presented, but wasn't presented to the board for us to vote, was an email from Beer Snobs that said they encourage other vendors to be down there. And so my point is, being that that email wasn't here, you made reference that other board members alluded to honoring the contract. I'm not saying that their opinion would change, but I think they needed to have all the information before they made that decision, and information was withheld from us that would have been maybe better to have it all out in front of us so we can make a logical decision.
no, I get, and Rick, I'm not trying to piss you off, but I'm gonna come really, if I were to unload all
I
the
have nothing
information
about-
that I have on this whole situation, it would just be a big mess. I'm not withholding any information from the board, and to clarify, and I've said it, I mean, I gotta be careful of where I said it, but I've said it publicly also. Whoever is contracted to run the beer garden for the village of Hartland has absolutely no authority to say what other stuff gets sold in the parks. They have their lane to stay in, and like an 18-wheeler driving down the road, just stay in your lane. I'm saying for them, we have the authority to decide that.
Oh, I get
There's
that.
nothing that says that we can't change things. But in my position, when we talk about confusion, nothing's ever gonna be perfect.
No,
But in my opinion, if someone comes forward, and there's been a lot of comments, I can get into it. If someone comes forward and comes to their 5th meeting and is like, oh my God, you're not treating businesses good because you're making people come. No, you're not being made to come to any meetings. You just got told no 5 times and you're not hearing it. You're hearing the N but not the O. And you're like, okay, so we're still in the game.
My point is, if we're gonna honor their contract, that they get exclusivity for the 1 year, then we reevaluate next year, then that's what it should be. So nobody should be able to bring any type of food in there. That's contradicting, that's hypocritical. It's all or none.
Rick, I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying. I'm just saying that I don't agree with it.
And that's fine.
Because at the same time, you were at the park board while it was going on, where they were talking about, you say all or none. It didn't turn into all or none with the food trucks. It was no cousins, no this, only local business, and there's only
That's
one
right,
that's
because the
got.
whole purpose of the beer garden is to support local businesses, right?
Yeah,
Okay, so if,
it's there to support local businesses, not prop them up.
I get that.
Okay, but I'm just being honest with you.
Well, I know, I'm just saying that allowing one entity, not another entity, in my mind, doesn't make sense and makes us look very foolish and hypocritical.
It does, but if,
Well, you just said it does, so if it does, it
no,
does. It can't be
it
it
does
does,
if you
but.
don't have all the information. Rick, do you have any affiliation with S3 through family in any way, shape, or form?
That has nothing to do with it.
It absolutely has something to do with it.
Do you have any affiliation with S3 with the previous thing that it sounds like you have a vendetta against somebody? Because that's what I'm hearing from all around the street.
vendetta?
Oh, yeah, I think somebody at S3 also has a bar in town that you were associated with, so don't throw that in my face. It has nothing to do with it.
I have no vendetta with anyone.
Well, that's not the way it was perceived from the last meeting. So I
It
think
was perceived that I had a vendetta against somebody?
maybe you should go back and review the video of it.
You can think that I have a vendetta.
Okay,
I'm
well, you
just,
can think I have something, it has nothing to do, throwing my daughter in here is irrelevant.
I'm not throwing
You
your
just said
da-
it, Jeff, and I thought, I'll tell you, it's out of line.
I didn't say it, you just did. I said, are you associated in any way?
Have a relative working.
Rick, I didn't say
All right,
that.
let's move on. This is
what I'm-
bullshit.
I'm,
Move on.
Is this the first year? So I think we should wait till they come and.
it's just a first reading. But if changes want to be made, we could vote to make changes, or give direction to make changes.
I add something.
Sure.
Okay, so in the mobile food, in the section 22-169, we have the hours of 7 AM to 11 PM. Are you happy with that? Is 11 o'clock too late? Because that's for the village, so like out on the street or whatever. And then second of all, to add on to that, section 22-172, which is the mobile food vendors in the parks, we have no hours, so do we want to put hours listed on here? I mean,
We can.
when the park is open or park is closed, I mean, however you want to do it. I mean, except for the special events, obviously that runs late.
That's
but-
something good to put in there, because technically the parks close at dusk. So are they able to keep serving after? I guess in that case, they'd have to do a special events as it stands right now.
Well, I'm just thinking most restaurants around here aren't open till 11 o'clock. So I just wondered if you guys have a problem with that.
So the current, ordinance does read till 11 o'clock, and I am not aware of any issues that we've had with it to date. That doesn't mean that down the road that could be an issue. I could see that causing a potential problem depending on the venue and day of the week. And if they chose to stay open to that time, I could see potential residents being concerned with that. But I would say our current ordinance has that same exact language, and I have not had any complaints off the top of my head that I
So-
can recall.
Okay, so I guess I'm just thinking that for the mobile food vendors in the parks, maybe we just add the hours there. Is the
Do we
only
want to
thing I'm
add the
thinking.
hours, or would we like the word dusk, where kind of as summer winds down, then it's just earlier and earlier, and
Well,
I'm just asking, I don't know.
And then there has to be an asterisk because technically Nixon doesn't close, right, because of the ice age and the path?
We've locked the bathrooms.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
that
we
doesn't
would,
stop anybody.
we would take the totality of those circumstances, but there was some wording in there too during special events. It could be open past dusk and things like that I know we built in a couple of years ago. If you're on the lighted path, some of those type of
Yeah.
things were in there that we would, now if you're just in the middle of the baseball field at Nixon, would probably shoo you out of there for no reason if it's after those hours or after dusk.
So I'm just thinking maybe we might want to add something or just leave it the way it is. It sounds like they don't really have a problem with it, so.
It's probably not a bad idea to add something. I agree with Tim on that. All of a sudden, you have a food truck running until 11, and there's no teeth to saying, no, you can't do this anymore, so I agree with Tim on that. That's something, some type of wording should be added on when it's cut off. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, just a short thing, 22-171, application requirements. I was talking to DPW Jensen about this, under C, electrical connections with extension cords to adjacent private properties. He recommends adding the word private. This is for food trucks on private property, just to specify that we're referencing the private property there. Any food trucks in the park do have to be self-sufficient. And then I just want to mention, in the fee schedule, we just put through numbers in there as placeholders. That is up to the board. But I think we were a little exhausted from drafting all of this. Trucks, trailers, the first fee grouping there would be on private property. Those are the fees that we currently charge, or at the $25 a day. Annual is $150. And then carts, we had a fee in there, and then we would need to create a fee schedule for trucks in village parks, meaning Nixon, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then the other parks.
Anybody else with input? Well, that first reading's done. Now we have presentation of draft water supply service area plan.
All right, so I kind of want to go over the order of this a little bit. So what I'm doing tonight is just kind of giving a presentation of the water supply service area plan. From that, we'll be collecting input, public comments that can be either sent to my email. We have a link on the village website. It shows my email and it shows the this plan specifically. So if anyone has any comment, they can email me, call me, ask questions. We're taking all that public comment for 30 days. And then we also have a public hearing here as well on June 9th. So that's just a specification that's laid out by the DNR for this requirement of this plan. So jumping into the plan, it's a pretty extensive plan. It's looking at the next 20 years projected for specifically our water utility in the village. Basically, it's going over the storage, and the supply, and any issues. So it's laid out really well. I would recommend everyone to actually read and go over it. But I'll just jump to kind of the conclusion, what they have there. The only concern that we have right now.
Tom, you can keep on reading. I'm stepping out for just a second.
Okay. The only issue we do have right now is going to be PFAS coming up. It's not an issue currently because it has not been addressed by the state of Wisconsin. It's just published by the EPA. We have until 2029 to do that if the state adopts that ruling as far as an MCL for PFAS. Our well number 6 is at 4.1 and it goes between like 3.8 and 4.1. 4.0 is the recommended MCL for PFAS. So we are starting to look into treatment options for that to try to get a budgetary number this year for CIP for you guys to take a look at. So that's something new that's going to be on the forecast here for us. Other than that, the quality of the water, the supply of the water, and our storage is par to make it to 2045. Other than that, this was a recommendation, or this was a requirement because we went over the population of 10,000. Once a community reaches that number, we are required to do a lot more sampling and stuff like that. That's why we've been reaching out to residents throughout the village, getting more sampling parties to have that representative sample across the entire village. So as soon as you hit that 10,000 population or beyond, you're required to do more. So we've done that in the village here, and that's kind of where a lot of this is coming from. But if anything changes significantly in the plan, we have to update this plan, and every 5 years it needs to be looked at and revised. But once again, this plan is out on our village website. If anyone has any questions about any of the information that's on here, it's a very comprehensive plan and background information about our entire water system. So,
I have a question.
yeah.
Do you have enough people signed up for the water testing? I did receive that letter. I was just wondering, because I think you were looking for 40 people or more.
Yep, yeah, naturally, we got our number, and then after that, we got an influx of everyone sending us, so we
Awesome.
have more than ample for that right now. which is a good thing. But the DNR was very specific on the homes, the age class they wanted, the type of material, and that's why we did the areas that service inventory that we did for the last 3 years. So we've been working with the DNR and the water department to get all those sample requirements in for this. So we are good. Thank you.
Anybody else? Thank you, Tom.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to schedule a public hearing for June 9th of 2025 for the water supply service area plan.
Second.
We have a scheduled public hearing for June 9th, 2025. We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? That motion is carried. Now we have discussion and consideration to award Mid-City Corporation the contract for maintenance and repairs required for the Arlene Lift Station check valve vault in the amount of $22,400.
All right, so as you guys know, we are having work done to Arlene Lift Station, Shadow Ridge, and Rustic Lift Station. This is a PLC upgrade and basically keeping up with all the computers and the logistics behind the controls and the panels that are inside those lift stations. Under the recommendation of R&M, we split this out, and I kind of did a lot of the back work behind this to get some of this mechanical work done. When you wrap up mechanical and with the logistical side of it, you know, you have different contractors from all over kind of working, you know, you have certain subcontractors that do this and do that, so I kind of took that weight off of getting that contracted out, looking into this, having the mechanical side and the electrical side of it. So this was just an addition to that, but this is something that's going to be needed for our Arlene Lift Station because we are upsizing those pumps. We have also found out that those plug valves and isolation valves for those are froze shut, and we cannot operate them, which is going to be a big issue in the future. But went out and I got 3 different quotes. It was a lot to put in just because Arlene Lift Station is our highest flow. So during that, they're going to need to do, they're going to need to actually draw from the wet well in a tanker truck and draw that up to the next area of gravity where it can flow to a different lift station. So it's kind of taking it out of that zone, if you will. So because that lift station is going to be down during this work, there's going to be a lot of work behind it. And I was just making calculations and making sure that we weren't going to have any backups or anything like that. So there was a lot involved with this and getting working with the 3 contractors. The third contractor did not submit a final quote to us. I only have 2 numbers there, but they basically bowed out after all the complications to this project. But the low bid came from Mid-City Corporation, which I actually preferred because they're the ones that are actually doing the work on this, but it's a separate division of them, and they were able to wrap that up with their project, so they're going to have familiarity with that lift station throughout the project. So staff recommends awarding Mid-City Corporation the contract for the maintenance and repairs required for the Arlene Lift Station check valve vault for the sum of $22,400.
I'll make a motion then to award Mid-City Corporation the contract for maintenance and repairs required for the Arlene Lift Station check valve vault in the amount of $22,400.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the Mid-City Corporation the contract for maintenance and repairs required for the Arlene Lift Station check valve vault in the amount of $22,400. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? That motion is carried. Now we have discussion and consideration to purchase ODB leaf vac for the sum of $140,072.56 as approved in the 2025 budget.
All right, again, so this was a budget-approved expense for replacement of one of our leaf vacs. The current leaf vac we have has been around for 27 years. State recommendation or the DOT recommendations for replacement is every 12 years. So that thing has outlasted its lifetime, probably thanks to Leo over here. So we are not looking at the lowest bidder here though. Dinkmar was the lowest bidder, but it definitely falls within the budget of the ODB. The ODB is the current model that we have now, the current company that we use, the one that we have the most familiarity with again, and one that's held up for 27 years. So Leo kind of looked over the Dinkmar and saw a lot of areas of faulty potential issues, or I should say, with that trailer and with the setup on that. So that's why we are recommending the middle proposal for the sum of $140,000. So with that, staff recommends the purchase of the ODB leaf vac for the sum of $140,072.56.
Will you get that for this fall if you order it now?
Projected. You know, every day steel prices go up and down and it's all steel, so projected.
I'll make a motion to approve the purchase of ODB lift vac for the sum of $140,072.56 as approved in the 25 budget.
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the purchase of the ODB leaf vac for the sum of $140,072.56 as approved in the 2025 budget. I did have just a couple quick questions on that. When did we get this last one?
The last one we got in 2002.
2002.
This one was from 98. They're both the same. This is a basic current model of what that was back then. It's just
Yep.
a lot more money.
Sure. So the, are we keeping the old one or are we gonna,
Well, it's up to you. You want us to keep it?
I don't know if there's a need. That's why I'm just asking, because I'm just gonna ask that. If we put in-
This is a replacement, it's scheduled to be a replacement. I do see us needing one in the future here, so that's gonna be a discussion, but right now it's scheduled as a replacement, but at this point, it's probably gonna be a discussion with, Ryan and myself and notifying the board if we are gonna take that to sale at the surplus auction.
And that was the
Just
only
be-
reason I was asking is because then I'd ask that in the motion it be put that it's gonna go on to
Right,
surplus
yeah.
auction.
So,
That's
so
it.
right now, the concern, you know, that we have is, we've had 2 leaf vacs for a long period of time, and right now it's taking us a lot longer. A lot of the subdivisions that were developed, 20 years ago have mature trees that are 20 years old now. So there's a canopy, that we never saw before.
Sure.
So right now, this leaf vac doesn't owe us anything, for the amount of time that we've had it and used it. What we're gonna get on the auction site for it, I don't know, but that's kind of gonna be a discussion kind of with myself and Ryan if we're gonna keep that unit around or
Right.
not, and if not, we will bring that back.
Okay, and that's all I was at. So for
Yep.
right now, we're gonna keep it. That'll be a discussion for a different day.
For right now, we are selling it. Right now, we are selling it. That is a replacement plan. This is 1 for 1, but I would like to talk to Ryan and figure out if that's an option we can keep. He knows all the rules behind what his budget is as far as replacement of a vehicle or adding a vehicle. Right now, the way it was budgeted was for replacement.
Okay, and
Yep.
I mean, to add to that, I wasn't asking so much from budget when I started that we just sell everything
Yep.
on. That's just to make sure it doesn't end up in the wrong hands.
Correct, yeah, no, if,
It was just a simple, so right now, don't include it in the motion
correct,
to,
yes.
to put it on the
Yeah,
auction.
yeah.
Is there an option that we could have 3 suckers working?
That's what we'd like, but then we'd also need 2 extra guys running it too. So, when it comes to that pinch point, either spring or fall is our busy season, and fall's one of those busy seasons, so, having enough staff, that's 6 guys out doing leafs if we have 3 machines out on the road, so.
So this particular unit has a few gremlins, like the wiring harnesses stuff. There's a small dashboard. None of that stuff works. We've changed it all over to mechanical, regular old hand throttle. So some of the features that are ailing and failing are, kind of important, but to keep it around, yeah, I would like to, but Tom's like 30 years old, we gotta move on, So.
Not only
that's-
that, but storage too.
Right,
you know.
you have 3 of them, plus you have 6 guys picking up leaves then, that's half our crew. So, yeah, it would be nice to have a third machine, you look at when we bought this machine, you didn't have River Reserve, you didn't have River Reserve 2, you didn't have Blue Ridge, didn't have Mary Hill, Four Winds, Traditions. Overlook.
Windrush.
Windrush. Bristol Cone was 3 years old, you know what I mean?
So in grand scheme of it, kind of to what Tim asked, when are we actually gonna get this leaf vac? We don't know. So I mean, at that point, it might be the fall when we get the leaf vac, or even later, we might be using this old unit this fall. And if we do have 3 machines at that, we'll see if we can actually utilize it and see if we have enough staff to run it and see how it works, and then we would have a more informed decision if we're gonna try to keep that unit or not.
As soon as
Totally
we get a
understandable.
delivery date, we can come back, cause it would be nice to sell it in the fall, cause it's worth a lot more.
That time of the
You know
season.
what I mean? And we're trying to play that margin, but
Sell a boat in the spring, not the fall.
Yeah.
it probably
That's
doesn't
right.
make sense to hold on to this piece actually, because of the age, and, I mean, there's been some catastrophic failure with it, but.
I was thinking more so of, are we gonna keep it so someone can come and unhook and just rehook and they're back out on the road and then it gets fixed? But
would-
regardless, I was just asking on if we were getting rid of it.
We've done a lot of work to it, so it's a tough sell to keep it, even for me, honestly.
All right. Well, we have a motion and a second we have a motion on the floor. All in favor of buying the ODB leaf vac, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? That motion is carried. Now we have discussion and possible action on, presentation by Keller Inc. regarding space needs study. Sir.
All right, how much time do you want to spend on this? I'll be quick. So, to essentially, I want
Would you be able to stand by the podium so they can pick everything up? Do you mind? Or do you want us to set up a table for you? Would that be easier?
it might not be bad. Do we have another? Wow, I don't need everyone act.
Cause that microphone will move.
You could just use this one, I can sit in the chair.
Yeah, we can use that one.
Use this one, Tom.
Sorry.
Paste them out of crayons, though.
Look at that. Thank you, guys.
He's going.
All right, to set the stage, last time, I want to just kind of run through some general items and then we'll get into it. So, I'll run through some stuff, Greg will go through plan updates, and then we'll kind of talk about next steps. So, recapping from last meeting, we talked about a couple different options, and the overall opinion was Hartbrook having police and admin, and Lawn Street having fire only. Doesn't mean that's the final decision, but that is the direction we were given, so, one of the main focuses was Lawn Street with fire, cost to remodel, cost to go to a ground up. Again, I will continue, reiterating, we wanted to plan to bid this fall for a spring start construction, and that ties right into some of the bigger next steps. So I think we'll talk a little bit about timeline, but just to kind of set the stage for later in the conversation, where we are right now, we have a little bit of time to continue finalizing decisions, but based on what we talked about the last 2 meetings, I think we're narrowing the focus. So we evaluated a couple different sites, a couple things didn't end up working out, but if this is the direction, I think it would make sense to come back in June with a contract to begin doing construction documents. So it'll take probably 4 to 6, well, it's probably gonna take 5 to 6 months to do full-blown construction documents. So that would take us into December-ish. So then you're bidding in the January, February timeframe. So we would likely be sending Ryan information. Not a decision we gotta make today, but want to just let everyone know, make sure we're all comfortable with it. That is likely, if we continue moving forward, that would likely be the next big step.
Can I jump in here?
Absolutely.
The last one we looked at, from last time, and it could just be me being wrong, I know there was a few options, wasn't this fire and PD
At Lawn Street?
last time you presented?
Yes, that was one of the options, but the overall opinion of the board was Hartbrook being police and admin, and Lawn Street being fire. However, I don't think that is final yet, though.
I just didn't, I thought,
Okay.
go ahead.
So, the other thing, which I wanna just bite the head off of it right now. Last time, we spoke very briefly about the gym, and I incorrectly informed the board, and I am sorry. So, wanted to clear up any confusion from last time, so, kind of pause the plans right now, jumping way back to where we were. The additional gym space that we're planning for the rec and admin building was going to be approximately 15,500 square feet. So we had this large building that was, this gym, and then it was all of those classrooms, and then the admin side, which ended up being roughly 31,000 square feet, but just the gym itself is approximately 15,500. So if that were to be considered added, we're looking at approximate cost for that gym space of about $5 to $7 million. It could be done now, it could be done later, something we can definitely dig into once we get the plans up there, but I wanted to bring that up right away. That was a fault on my end, so sorry about that.
But is it even a possibility if we wanted a gym, like just don't take this the wrong way, I'm thinking of like the shell, where you have walls, you don't have bleachers and all that, but
Yep.
you have walls and does that still put us in 5 to 7 not all the classrooms and all that, I'm saying if you add on a gym building, I'm just asking, is it anything that's even possible to do for 2.5 or something like that, if you just have the wall, like an area just for people to be able to go and play in? I could be off, I'm just asking.
Probably not.
I didn't know.
I would say, maybe like 4 to 5, but even that, you're probably cutting it.
Okay.
Pretty close.
I didn't know, so I wanted to ask.
One of the things that ends up being a little challenging with a gym is with all the, I don't want to age everyone here, but just the building codes themselves have made building so expensive with all the energy codes, all these other things, and then to take into consideration, now you got to add all the bathrooms, now you got to add all these different things, even to you go into some schools and facilities, they're probably 20, 30 years old, and it's just a big metal building, and that's their gym. Well, you can't really do that anymore, so you got to have all the other pieces and parts.
Okay, I just wanted to ask.
It's a good question. It is a question I think about regularly.
Well, no, it's the same thing as when I asked last time, and you were like, well, because we'll just renovate this building and add on to it, but we don't have to do a lot of renovation. You're like, no, once that hammer hits, now it's got to meet today's code.
Unfortunately.
Yep, got it. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So, and then we'll talk about budgets a little bit. Yeah, let's go through the plans first. Actually, no, let's go to the budget so we can think about everything while we're going through the plans. We'll do the boring stuff first. So this budget, and we can jump over to, I have all the information from, if we're talking about police and fire on Lawn Street or the other options we've looked at. But, so those are certainly things I can grab here, but, for the ground up police and admin at Hartbrook Park, we'd be looking at approximately 17 to 20 million. There's a couple things that I want to verify. I was scratching in my head over the weekend a little bit, and I just kind of put together some notes and just want to do some verifying. I mean, we're taking space away from a park, so really want to make sure that we're not disrupting park equipment, that we're being fair with the community for the space. We're looking at possibly relocating the restrooms. What are we going to do with the baseball diamonds? So a couple things that they're not directly affecting the building, but they are involved in the site. So if that site makes a lot of sense, I do think it would be, I guess this is more my opinion, we'd have to talk about it as a group, but I think it would make sense to present or at least get some input from the park committee and make sure they're comfortable, everything is jiving, but again, that's a little bit out of my realm, that's your community. So yeah, 17 to 20, when we're looking at a fire remodel at Lawn Street, we are looking at remodeling this existing space, about 9,000 square feet, ground up space, which is approximately 8,500. One of the big challenges is connecting those buildings. Can it be done? Absolutely. And that puts us 6 to 7.5 million. If we are to tear it down and start over, we are approximately 8 to 9.5 million. And then again, that gym space would put us 5 to 7. So how come the ground up fire station does not cost that much more than the remodel? So with the design, and Greg will kind of go over it, we are stripping everything down to essentially the structure itself, completely renovating it, all new mechanical, electrical, plumbing. We're going to have to rip up some of the concrete floors, so now we're cutting the floors, now we're ripping the floors out. And then when we're adding on to a roof like that, which is a gable, and we're adding on to the side, we're talking about some pretty extensive connecting and overlaying of that roof. So again, it's an expense. It's not a challenge that can't be done. I mean, we do it all the time, but it does add up in a hurry. So those are the approximate numbers. We can certainly come back to them, but I think if we want to, which one do you want to start with? Fire.
Lawn Street, option A.
Lawn Street option A, which is a ground up.
The ground up version, yep. It's the newest one. We haven't looked at this option. So this was taking the same program that we had previously looked at with the group for the remodeled and addition to the existing fire station, and using those same program pieces in a what if scenario. What if it was ground up and we eliminated what we had on the site in the existing building? So one thing that we talked about was adding space for 40 on the site. So you'll notice both options now show parking for 40 vehicles. There's a little bit of a limitation, just like the existing building remodel, in that there's the wetland, or the wetland setback that kind of pushes us to the south of the site. So we are still somewhat limited to what we can do. So I pushed the building all the way to the south to maximize the area we have to get around the building on the north side. So there's, from a site plan perspective, that would be the apparatus bays on the north side, all the admin and living space or sleeping quarters would be on the south side of the building. The existing Survive Alive house and would be relocated to the northeast corner of the parking area, or somewhere thereabouts. It seemed like an obvious location, so that's what I chose. I think that really handles the site. Still visitor parking off of Lawn Street on the west side. If we go to the floor plan version of that,
Greg, on that one, we would not have to acquire that lot?
correct. Yeah, both of these options, we did not have to acquire that small unbuildable lot. So, walking through the site plan, visitor would come to that lower west side, lobby, conference room, toilet room, greeter, admin area, and then admin's side, the offices, support spaces for that, training room located off of the lobby with also access sort of the central part of the building, apparatus bays and command vehicle garage, all with access to Lawn Street. And then the living quarters sort of on that east side of the building. Yeah. So I think it lays out nicely. I think there's still, like all these layouts, we're trying to fit a lot on a site, so there's gonna have to be massaging, but comfortable layout. Hopefully everything was accounted for. Any questions or comments on that layout? Silence.
Health and wellness, what's going in there?
That would be,
I believe that was the fitness.
yeah, fitness equipment.
And, training area, so doing some of the fitness, but then also some of the, training, CPR, educational things like that, in more the active area.
Option B at Lawn Street, if nobody has any comments or questions, is, I believe, we changed some things around in plan. A site plan isn't much different other than the added parking area, similar to the ground-up version. And a different location for the Survive Alive house. But the floor plan, I think we flip-flopped or mirrored the living quarters area. I think that was the big change on this plan. But otherwise, similar spaces, similar size spaces, and as the ground up had shown. Again, it's a little bit hard to, I guess, see where the existing walls are. The darker shaded area would be the additions, and then there's a heavier line kind of through where the addition or existing walls are. So again, it looks like it works, but without getting into all the finite details of it, there'd be a little bit more restriction on what we can do based on where walls are.
Paving room is just like TV and stuff like that, right, chief, like kickback,
Yes.
basically?
I don't have an issue with either one. It's whatever fits their needs and whatever they like better. And, you know, they're over there all the time. I'm not, so.
Yeah, both generally would fit everything we need and we've been looking for, so.
Does one version more appealing?
The cheaper one.
If they both
mean,
do the same thing.
Other than the fact that, obviously the ground up one, there's a lot less question about, where if you're gonna try and do a remodel, you know, what are you gonna run into that's gonna jack that price maybe past that, you know, $7.5, $8 million range that we don't know about, you know? So that would be my only concern with that, but
Already taking consideration with the flex of the price? I mean, I know there's always something, but
Theoretically, but, the ground up, or I'm sorry, the remodel is always gonna have a little bit of uncertainty. The things that kind of spiraled through my head, and I don't know that there's a perfect answer, the one caveat is adding on to the remodeled version over time is going to be very, very challenging. I don't know that you will. I don't know if you will in 20, 30 years. You are going to be bound by some existing conditions that are gonna be very challenging. If we're kind of if we're not really worried about that down the road, it may make more sense if we have hesitation with a growing community in the next 20, 30 years. I would be a little concerned with that. It's very challenging. Once you start adding on more and more, site layout is, I think, I mean, personally, I would prefer the ground up just with, location, but again, gotta weigh those options. So, I mean, me as an outsider, it's hard for me to fully recommend one. I think having some staff input would probably help make that judgment call.
Chief, if we go to full-time, I forget the number, how many did we say would be, like, total force? I remember when we were talking about all that through the study.
through the study, it was, 6 per shift.
6
Plus
per
then still have some part-time personnel to
shift. And then
kind of fill
during the
in.
day, how many admin are, including secretaries?
Right now, it's just the 3 of us, DC Sharp, myself, and Julie. So
Oh.
that would, I mean, down the road, who knows where that would be depending on call volume. I mean, Julie spends a lot of her day now doing, reviewing reports, and
Yeah,
no idea how long she's gonna stick around, so.
I was just looking at, and obviously this probably isn't the right time to pick it apart, but I'm just saying, like, looking at the training room, there's enough seating there to basically train twice the amount that even would be there for a full-time department. Because you come up with a number about 26, 27, the way I'm counting is that's basically one close.
Because you're using that, you're eliminating your, what do you call it, the stay alive house? Because that's where your conference room is now.
The training room, yeah, is
Yes.
attached to the Survival Live House,
So
right?
you're using that is going to be your training room.
Correct.
So that would be not just people that are there full-time.
Right.
No, not as, it would be like CPR, when we're teaching community CPR programs, when we're doing, there's occasional that we actually host classes throughout the tech college as well, where we might have students from multiple departments coming, and we'll be hosting it at our station for those programs. And then, right now, currently, if we have an external entity coming in to utilize the space for something, for meetings or for blood drives, things like that.
Chainsaw.
Chainsaw safety.
We've used it, because you can get more people in. Sure.
And we haven't been involved in too much of this, but our concern with building onto the existing building is sewer and water to that. Is that planning on being replaced?
I would highly recommend.
Yes,
ripping
because
everything.
we have issues with that. You guys have issues with that, then we have issues with
Either
that.
way you go, you're gonna need to do it.
Yeah, so that's
That's
right.
a 4-inch water.
That's my input.
And we've had repairs there.
So that is a perfect segue of why remodels for municipal buildings end up costing so much, is because you're gonna do it once, you're gonna do it right. You're gonna rip all that old stuff out and make sure it is clean and ready to go.
I'm not saying either plan is bad, I'm just saying they're both gonna need it.
Perfect.
Okay, shall we move on to the village hall and police station? So the site plan, which is not up, but everyone's got it. Little bit of changing of what is, where the gates are, or the gated area for the PD parking. We talked about admin could park on the far west side, so we sort of, I guess, reduce the number of staff parking for the PD and create a designated area for staff, for admin. Other than that, I don't think there was any changes on the site plan.
I have a question on that. Wasn't the initial plan showing the building more to the north? Because isn't there like a nasty sewer issue where the building's going to be right now?
Yes, there's a storm main that goes through there.
So, I mean, obviously that's costly, right?
I think we're gonna have to relocate it regardless.
This is Hartbrook Park we're talking about now?
Yeah.
That's sanitary. It's a sanitary interceptor that runs through there.
You can see it run right through the building there.
Yep.
So if the building was to the north, we would still tear that up and redo it?
It basically comes out up by the foul pole, correct?
Yeah, there's a Y right there, if you can see it. There's the one that goes underneath the river and goes up,
Oh, yeah, okay.
through Chestnut, and then there's the one that goes, on a diagonal there across the field, the outfield right now. But the outfield one is the one that would have to be diverted through the street, so Ray Drive to Hartbrook Drive is where that would have to go.
And then I'm also in agreement with you is once you lose something, i.e. baseball field, you're never gonna get it back. So I would like to have that in the plan where we would relocate that baseball field at some other location, i.e. Cottonwood, but I've heard there's other issues going on there as well, so that's my 2 cents.
Which he mentioned, right?
Tim, do we have any other options on that field that come to mind, or?
We showed an option for Centennial.
There's been a lot
They
of talk.
basically be next to each other, existing one, and then we put one next to it, basically. And then you gotta decide too, is it better utilize baseball, softball, baseball with younger kids?
The only thing about that is that's really our only big green space left. And so if you've designated for that, then you don't have any big green space for
Yeah, 'cause isn't
other.
soccer up there and stuff like that?
Well, there's soccer, there's been field hockey practice, there's whatever,
I think
lacrosse,
there's a
yeah.
lot of, it would be nice for me to see something happen up there, because football's been slowed way down, soccer, you know, I think it would be nice to get it revamped maybe, you know?
Well, make a multi-use, I guess.
I think it would be a great, idea to look at that.
That's what I was thinking, like, if we made it multi-use, it'd be, then you run the fences and stuff like that, but all of a sudden, you can't have multi-use,
Right. Yeah, but we looked at that when we were trying to add a T-ball field, we thought we could put one out there because it's low impact, they're not cleated up, I mean, the one at Hartbrook is youth, there's no mound.
5 and 6 year old.
They're not hitting it far. I mean, I think there's options.
There's a need, we get packed fields every year, so.
It's a lowest field, sticky field we got, Hartbrook too, But I agree with you,
I just didn't know if there was any, but it sounds like we don't. I didn't know if there was any options of putting it in. That's why I was asking Tim. I didn't know if there was any other.
We even talked one time about like Joliet. I mean, it's a big area. Could you make that actual 60 foot, field and put a fence back there. You know?
Hartbrook is used all the time throughout the summer, is it not?
Yes.
Yes. For baseball? Yeah. I mean, almost constantly, every day.
Every night of the week, I'm
Yep.
sure. So those are my concerns.
And Tim, you were talking, if we put it to the north, would that field stay?
Well, the initial site plan showed it staying, but, that was a long time ago, so obviously things have changed since then.
Yeah, due to, I think that might have been a version where there wasn't PD on that site because it gets pretty limited as far as setbacks and what we have to work with the further north we go.
I think PD was hooked up with the fire at the
Yeah.
time.
I agree. I think that last week, that's what I remember from the
Yep.
last meeting. That's what I
Yes.
originally remembered.
It's just so skinny.
Right.
Because your setback is really here.
You're gonna end up with a 300-foot long building.
Right. Not to say it's impossible, but it would be a tough ask. Should we go to the floor plan?
Yep.
So, this is pretty similar to what you saw last time. We reorganized some of the spaces internally based on feedback from the PD. I don't think there was much on the admin side. I think we did a little work in the common spaces with a kitchenette. But yeah, mostly internal. Briefing room changed location, detective area got swapped around a little bit. And the locker rooms went to separate men's and women's locker rooms.
Right on the Village Hall side, I would just recommend flipping the small conference room and maybe the men's toilet room to make that conference room accessible from the hallway for the public and from our office area for the building inspector or staff. To be able to access that room, that would be helpful.
Would we be able to add on to the evidence storage if need be? I mean, it's, obviously it goes out into Hartbrook, so.
Yeah, this would be a much larger room, both for our lab processing area,
Okay.
but even more so for our storage area. I think if we had to, we could always go to wherever the garage door comes out with that bump out to add some space, like for future growth. And then there will be some evidence area in the garage itself for like, think vehicles, bikes, bigger property stuff that we wouldn't want to track in through the building that we're using currently that DPW garage for.
And potentially a mezzanine for longer.
Long term.
Yep.
If we had to.
Just
But
throwing this
our
out there.
current evidence room is smaller than like these offices right now. They're like the size of an office, so this would be dramatic for
And
us.
you've had input on this?
Yes,
Okay.
yep.
Put village above police, even though I know that means elevator and it means a two-story building, does that open up the opportunity to keep the ball field?
Maybe. It's
I figured I'd say it now as opposed to later, because I do see that it's, I mean, everything's one story, but you're, the reason I say this is because all over metropolises across the entire country, obviously you don't have a big office building where like, all right, take 87, except for factories, like down in Pleasant Prairie, but they go up. You can use 2 floors if you have police on the first floor and you have village above them. It's almost like that now, it's just that this is tri-level, but I just don't see what it hurts. 60% of people are gonna be running up the stairs and that kind of thing, and you have a stairway that goes up and down, and then you have an elevator, and I understand that's an added cost. I'm not pushing that, but I'm saying if it gains the village on retaining a ball field, I know police we didn't want them on the second story, but I didn't know if that assists us in any way when it comes to the village, because you already have the footprint from the police department. So if you build it on top and you have a parking lot for a park, and right now they're using municipal lot for parking of the village employees, so I just wanted to throw that out there when I did see just 1 story throughout. As you can tell, we're very limited on space as the village is, the belt is tightening as we're growing into it. And I don't wanna waste time, because I think at some point we gotta get this going, but I didn't know if that's an option, because it sounds like it is very important to retain the ball field, and I think it hurts nothing. It doesn't, chime in, it does not hurt the service. Does that concern you, Torrin, if village was above police?
The
We would
community
have a
room.
big entrance and a sign that says village entrance, and one on the other side that says police.
So the only things that were in this current design were, like, where you come in and the lobby was right there and very efficient to go between the two. The other thing would be the community room above us, depending on what they're doing in there, could be distracting, and how soundproofed it is. Cause we could hear the current one fairly well right now, being below us. That's without the tap dancers above us.
You don't wanna be above, no.
The only thing, and we said this when we were talking about the other plans that could ever go multi-level, is there'd be certain things I'd want on the first floor. Officers' working area, so they can run out to the garage and go. Evidence room, so I don't have to track potential dangerous evidence through an entire building to a different floor. But then could I do like locker rooms on a different level? Could I do, I could make it so it made sense if I had to, where we could parse the department between 2 levels by saying this is the priority to stay there, and this would be the not as much of a priority that we can get away with moving it upstairs.
And I guess I was speaking more so that police department has its footprint, and then they are putting village
Right, on
on
top
top.
of it. Right.
I don't wanna take too much, because we've gotten so far into it. Maybe the community room has to be on the first floor, and that's a separate area, not obviously connected to police department necessarily. Everything's clear for people to get. I didn't know if it might make the footprint smaller where then the ball field's able to stay, is all I was. Because space is tight, when I see 1 story, it has been done before, where people build buildings up beyond the 1 story. I'm saying that kind of to be funny, but
I just want, real quick, I wanted to ask, I thought we had a design, and I don't know if you guys heard me before, didn't we have a design for a brand new ball field at Centennial that fit?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm just saying, even if we take up some space where it does lose that ball field, there is an option to make Centennial, which already has 2 ball fields, make it a complex?
Okay, I was just throwing in just from a space
Correct, I'm still
perspective.
stating, even if we have 2 stories, if for some reason we lost that, I think, Tim, our goal is that we would make sure that we have another facility for a ball diamond.
That's all I'm asking.
Yeah, I hear you.
Plenty.
So I think it would be, it's a good question. I don't have a good answer right now, so we can come back with a better answer. And I also think it's worth us going through and putting together a rough budget on if there would be a cost increase, what that cost increase would be. And then the board could have a conversation if it made sense to go 2 stories, or does it make sense to use that money and invest it into a different field? I don't have a good answer right now, but I can come back with that.
Okay. I was just wondering.
Right.
Because
Because if it's 50
I'm just trying to
grand-
think from a common sense, like if you buy a lot.
Right.
And you want this really big house with 4,000 square feet, and it's gonna go over the lines on the lot to get, if 4,000 square feet's really important to you, there's only 1 direction to go. You're either going up or you're going down.
Right.
That's all I was kinda,
Well,
and in this case, we wouldn't go down because that's all PD.
Right.
It was just a thought.
It's a good question,
Yeah.
because I mean, if it's 50 grand to go up, it makes more sense to do that.
That's
If
my
it's
point.
600 grand to go up, then it might make sense for the ball field to go somewhere else.
Right.
And I just want to say with Devin and Greg, if you do take that direction, Jeff and the board, I'm guessing you would want the boardroom on the first level?
I'm okay with some of this is going off of how Oconomowoc used to be. Oconomowoc was, I think, on the third. I'm not saying that's the best way. I wouldn't mind the boardroom being, I mean, we know you're gonna have to put in an elevator,
Right.
and possibly two.
To me, it would,
Yeah,
to me, it would be dependent on what his needs are come first, and then we flex wherever.
that's kind of what I was thinking. PD goes in, and then we're gonna fit in that space. Not like with PD not wanting, I mean, I'm sure we could figure out they would have to draw it up, but you could have okay, community room is down here, just like we have a community room in the basement now. But then you either walk up the stairs like most of us would, or you go in the elevator and you go upstairs. You know, maybe community on the first floor is good because that's what they're gonna be using for voting. It was just a thought on if it did save, the ball field's an amenity. There's gonna be a cost associated with moving it.
Right. It's a good question.
When we redid the ball field, I don't wanna I mean, we're coming on 8:30, but when we redo the ball fields, just the rehabs, I mean, that's like 30 or 50 grand, isn't it?
I think you're paying the gentleman, they'll tell you, is it cheaper to move the ball field or is it cheaper to go up?
Right.
I think it's gonna be pretty easy.
We'll look at the schedule too for Hartbrook, just to make sure that we're not
Right.
trying to solve a problem that may not fully exist. I think they get done fairly early, like end of June-ish by at that.
We can look
Is
at
it into July?
Football starts August 1.
we can look at
Football?
Civic Rec and look at the rentals.
Yep.
It's on the Civic Rec, we'll look.
Yeah, we'll take a look.
And like I said, I'm thinking of ideas for everybody the day is gonna come where the knife's gonna come out and the whittling is gonna start. I mean, the day is gonna come where we're gonna decide on something and there's gonna be whittling that's gonna go on. It's just the nature of the beast. But at some point, we gotta start too, cause we got needs standing there, looking at us and time stops for no one. Thank you. I just wanted to ask.
I was gonna pull up something now. We'll do the next time. All right. So. That's the majority of what we had. Want to make it quick and painless tonight. So, more or less, are we going the right direction on Hartbrook with police and admin and fire over at Lawn? The budgets are staying pretty consistent. I have concerns with the tariffs that are coming, but you know, I don't know, any other projects that we're going, really trying to continue moving forward, cause I just don't know what next year is gonna bring. Or what all these tariffs do potentially start hitting. I don't know that anyone has that crystal ball. And on our end, next time, we need to bring back some plans for Centennial. I think it would make sense to bring the Cottonwood, at least talk about it, talk about that budget. But I guess looking for some feedback from the
You
board
mean Cottonwood
tonight.
as if it's still on the table to do Cottonwood?
That-
No, I'm asking you. I don't know.
Was he talking baseball?
Yeah.
Oh, gotcha, okay. That's why I was clarifying.
So with that, no, just remember there's no facilities, no sewer, no water, no parking. So I think everybody's gotta be in agreement. We gotta look at the stuff we have to work with that makes sense.
Correct, I would agree. So I guess if the board would share, I know everyone's not here tonight, but are we headed in a direction that makes sense? Are we comfortable kind of continuing to move forward? Is there anything that we need to reevaluate?
I'm good with the way it's going.
I think you're going in the right direction. I mean,
Definitely the fire department is looking good. I don't have a problem with that.
I think that you know, going into this for myself, you know, there's times when it's really, really smart to try to pinch pennies. And there's other times where, you know, you've kind of opened my eyes where, you know, it's building code based. It's not just that you're trying to spend the money. And I understand what you're saying. So that's really opened my eyes. I mean, I definitely think we're going in the right direction. And, you know, maybe we're gonna be set for a lot of years for Hartland. So I think that we're going in the right, I mean, I know I hear some people kind of say 20-year plan, but I mean, there's not a lot of land to expand unless we really start going up. So I think that what we're gonna end up having is gonna be decent and is gonna be good for quite a long time.
Right, I would see these buildings lasting for 75 years. I mean, in 30 years, if you had to
Yep.
put an addition on or something. so be it,
Exactly,
but-
if needed.
Right.
Yep, will there be renovations along the way? I'm sure something will
Right.
come up. In how fire service does things or how police does things. I think we're going in the right direction. These things do need to happen, and honestly, you know, Hartland's reused buildings for a long time. They have, you know, this is a new part that was connected to an old building, used to be across the street. You know, Hartland's done a good job saving. We've driven the taxes down for 8 years. I mean, even though I don't wanna spend the money just to not spend the money, the fact is there's a need, and there's also something where all of a sudden it's like, I mean, how long do you wanna just have it, you know, keep on falling apart?
Right.
So, I think it's going in the right direction.
Is there anything actionable that we should be looking at, other than what I heard about Hartbrook Park and potentially trying to salvage that baseball field?
Well, I think that, you know, and I don't want this to be taken like playing favorites, but like when this whole process started, I know that police is busting at the seams and so is fire. But I know that, I mean, that it is really constrained at PD, so what I think I mean, I don't know how this all goes, but I think that building will have to get built. We still have stuff to work on with chief are we going to a full-time department, which it seems like we're going to, fire chief Chamberts. But that, you know, we do one and then do another. I think at some point that needs to come into that discussion. Because I think that helps things along if you know, or, I mean, it could be vice versa too. If you're set with fire, you can start on fire, but, you know, all of a sudden you build admin and police here and now it can help with, storage of vehicles and things like that from fire as they're going through, because that's gonna be the tough one. Cause police are able to stay here and then they go over. You know, there's multiple, I mean, obviously this land here isn't big enough to be able to house fire trucks, so it's not like they can makeshift this for a year, so. But I think at some point that schedule needs to start getting tight, and like you're saying, I mean, if things are gonna be 6% more next year or 16% more next year, you know, anybody that's in sales, that's selling product is seeing it, you know, 25% tariff, 35% tariff charge, this, that, and the other, but can beat it to death. I think at some point you gotta start.
Truly don't know what the year is gonna look like. I have one question. Is there any feedback or input that you would like to see when looking at the remodel versus the ground up?
I'm for ground up, I'm fire, I don't wanna see, I don't need to see the remodel. It's just better, it's gonna be a better product. That's my opinion, just mine.
Any tough questions that are lingering that?
If we were saving half the money, then we could talk, but, I mean, with it being that close, in the long run, it just doesn't seem.
Okay. Okay.
As far as the timeline, Ryan, are you still on? When do we need, maybe Sandy knows this, when?
Yes, I am. Sorry, trying to find the unmute.
When is your, when do you have to announce like how much you're borrowing or whatever?
Well, that would be a process. We'd get Ellers. Once we get to a point of where we're gonna start doing design and architecture and get into real money, at that point, we'd bring them in.
Okay, so, I mean, so that would fit into the timeline here of what we're talking about?
I hopped in partway through, so I don't have the timeline off my head, but yes, I
Oh,
think
okay,
from what I
so
looked
it's in
at
the
last,
budget.
we're fine.
Okay, all right, I just wondered.
So I guess a month before then, probably. So we can
Ryan,
come
if
to-
we're moving to look to start doing construction documents, would it make sense to have Ellards at that next meeting and just have?
Yeah, we absolutely could, yeah.
Okay. Just because then we have everyone in the same room.
That would be absolutely fine. Just shoot me an email and I will email them tomorrow.
Yeah, there's quite a few things that people do need to know, because like over at Hartbrook, even if we're moving the field, I mean, that's all fine and well, but we almost have to hit a planning stage because, I mean, I think it's appropriate, even though there might be some kickback, but if we are gonna be down a field at Hartbrook next year, I think instead of telling kids in the middle of winter, hey, you were playing at this field, you consider it your home field, you're not gonna be playing here anymore. I think it's good to tell them, so I think that, I mean, we know we're going in a direction, I think getting these footprints laid out, and then, that's just my opinion, I think we need to start on that process. Basically, what's gonna happen is this is gonna become real public real quick.
So, and that's where, you know, Greg is phenomenal, but he is limited by not being an engineer of, you know, he's not a mechanical engineer, not a plumbing engineer, not electrical. So really, the next big jump is getting everyone on board, getting the construction documents started. You know, talking about the sanitary, I'm only one guy, I'm a project manager, I don't know everything, so getting the right people involved to know exactly what we need to do. I think these are, you know, kind of schematic, big picture things that we're working through, but as we're, and this happens with every project, the further along we get and the more consistent we are, we're dealing with very, very finite questions that indicate to me that we're moving forward to getting everyone on board, getting the next step. And that's
Right.
what I think next meeting will probably be, is talking about construction documents, timelines, commitments, things like that. And going over with Ellers would probably be good.
That, for myself, I can say, and obviously I'm only 1 out of 7, you know, and I do hear you, I don't want this to come off as curt, but like, you know, the village hires a service because we don't have the expertise to know, certain things, and I guess I just, like, if all of a sudden it was, like, I'd be really ticked off if it was all of a sudden $10 million more than what we were told. I'm just being real. I
yeah.
know there's change orders for things at certain times, but I would really, I'd rather have you guys be real upfront and be like, okay, we gotta look at what's gonna happen here, because I don't have the expertise to go and do that. We're trying to hire that out. It would be really, really helpful. I don't wanna go to the public and say, hey, we're gonna do something for 32 million, and all of a sudden it's 46 million. And so I'm just looking for your help on that.
Could I have other clients give yourself or Ryan a call?
Well, you could, I'm looking more for you just like putting, if the numbers are good on what you have, I'm not saying from a lack of trust.
Oh, no.
I'm saying like if you need to look at the numbers just to be like, hey, are we right there? I'm not saying your company, but there's times where someone can put a number on and they're like, it's okay. If it goes up a little bit, it goes up a little bit, and then it's going up $1 million, I'm saying I'd rather have you be upfront and say, just so you know, this could jump up this much.
Right.
Kind of like when we sell stuff sometimes, that sold it before, where it's like, by the time we ship this to you and invoice you, it's gonna be plus or minus 10%, because prices are bouncing.
Right.
But that's being upfront, where it's like, just letting you know, here's the price we think we're gonna come in, but this could be 10% over.
Right.
Because then we know what to budget.
I think we're sitting pretty good.
Good, that's all I was
And the,
clarifying.
the tariffs do have me a little nervous. I'll be very upfront.
Can you attempt to get as much as you can for stateside?
Get, as much what?
As you can stateside? Like when you talk, how much of this is gonna be foreign in this building?
So, I had the luxury of, I don't know if you've, I had to do a grant, Build America, Buy America. So it was a federally funded grant. So all the stuff had to be American made. Couple things couple things. So some of the things in America that are made are a little bit more expensive. So that, number one, you're paying a premium. And then the other part is, like with the steel suppliers, it gets into a whole complex thing. So federally speaking, there are different levels of steel purchasing power. On top, you have automotives, and then you have appliances, and you kind of go through these different levels. And near the bottom is where you get like metal buildings, steel studs, things like that. The problem is, most of the things on the lower tiers are all milled in the U.S. You know, you got Nucor, which is a massive company, but once you get up top to the automotive and the appliances, most of that steel is brought in from China. So once the tariffs hit, these people have first pick of American steel, so now everyone's else steel, the demand just shot way up, and that's where that cost is. So I could see that happening a little bit. You know, the markets are a little soft right now, which is a huge advantage. So yeah, I don't know. I think next spring it's going to be a nightmare if I was kind of giving my own personal opinion, but I think pushing forward fast enough this year, you might be able to swing in as everything is shooting up like COVID. Because I mean, during 2021, if you were building a building, everyone was telling you you're crazy with prices, and then 2 years later, you'll never buy it for what you paid for ever again.
Yep. Funny times. I was wrong on my pecking order also.
What's
I thought
that?
it went military, railroads, and then everybody else.
Well, it probably does
on the
go
steel.
military.
But, okay.
I would hope
That's
they
all
would
I had
buy
to
it.
add.
That's all I've got.
Anybody else?
Do we want to set a meeting for next time, or do we want to do the board meeting again, like we did this time?
Ryan?
It's whatever you guys truly can make. We can do a board meeting, it just goes till 9 o'clock, but that's fine, just as long as everyone's fine with that. We tried to keep this agenda short and we failed.
This one worked out and we were done by 8:45, so we can schedule a board meeting, but let's have a hard stop so everybody can get their schedules right on, and let's shoot for being done at 8:45. You guys came on at 7:45, so I mean, I'm just saying, I mean, maybe it takes a few meetings. If we have to start doing specials, that's fine. But for, you know, everybody else, I'm just saying, like, everybody knows how much time. So if you guys come in, your presentation's an hour and a half, and you know we have an hour to discuss it, well, we're gonna miss, but.
When's the next board meeting in June?
So the second Monday.
Second Monday?
Otherwise, you go to July 14th.
Once we get to July 14th, we're gonna be pushing right into budget time, because they're already having their meetings by then. You know, because when we take a vote on this, I mean, we can't do it without a public hearing, so we gotta, this is why I'm saying I think we really need to hone in, and now we're getting, because once we get through budget, you know, all of a sudden we're in a situation where we gotta say, okay, let's do 45 million, and then we'll back it off to whatever number we land on it. It just kinda gets a little herky-jerky. Also, please bring the ball field thing next time, or whoever can bring the ball field thing. Ellers is gonna come next time?
I'm gonna ask him, which date did we decide?
Just the first meeting in June. Plan on the first and second meeting in June. If Ellers only needs to be here on the first, that's fine, but.
Yeah, I'll reach out to Greg. At worst, he can be on via Zoom, but.
What kind of time do you guys need to do what you gotta do here?
Let's do June 9th.
let's really try to push to get this done in June. Where at least we can start moving the ball forward. If they're saying that their number, this is just me talking, obviously it's not the board, but if they're saying that their numbers are on and they feel confident with them, let's, we gotta walk out of the next meeting that the footprint's set. We know where it's going.
Do you want a drawing for a two-story building or just the numbers?
With my tickets.
I mean, you could tell me right now, is it gonna be that much more expensive?
I would wanna sit down with an estimator. I'd be guessing if I told you right now.
I think we just need numbers first.
Just
We're
numbers.
wasting your time on drawings.
Just numbers,
I don't think you're gonna save the ball field, is my opinion,
then there's no point.
because there's so much that has to go on the first floor. Your police garage is on the first floor,
And
your
the-
large room, you're
Okay.
really not putting a lot up. And with the other site constrictions, I just don't see it saving the field.
My non-professional designer opinion would concur. I don't see how you save it, and if you do, it'd be like the green monster in left field. If you somehow got it out there, we'd be shaking balls off the building or something.
If we could just park your squads out there in
Yeah,
left field.
perfect. Hail damage, baseball damage, it's all the
It's got
same.
insurance.
I do think our best option would be to look at what that field use is and how do we better accommodate that in another location, like Centennial on that space. Do the Chiefs use that other space too, or just the football field? They're just on the football field, right? Because when you were bringing up the Chiefs, that was
We have
Centennial.
multiple things going on, so I think number one is that we gotta kick this, and Tim, you're here, but if we could get this on park board agenda for them to start getting ready for layout, because they might be down a ball field.
And we do have that design that they drew up for that ball field.
I just think it's good if it starts going through parks, like we start getting everything involved, because my hope right now, because our budget is September.
Yep.
So, and Ryan, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it gets a little more tough if we go through, September and the budget's set. It gets a lot more tough where it's easier going in knowing it, so I mean, I'm really hoping that in June, with the two meetings, and if we need more meetings, then we'll do more meetings. If we gotta come in for a powerhouse Saturday with coffee, then we'll come through and we'll do it, or it's whatever. But, we gotta get a schedule here where we're ready to go by the time June is done.
Would it help for us to be at a, park board meeting?
I don't see why they have to come.
Okay.
So that'd be the July meeting then, because we need that by Thursday to have on June park board.
Is there a park board, or is that DD set out that there?
As of right now, there's not, but I'm just saying, if you're trying to get this moving in June.
Tomorrow's Wednesday.
Tomorrow is.
Well, we have
Wednesday.
the plan for Centennial done.
Okay.
I think staff can work through some of that with the ball field, Jeff. I think we first should.
I think so too. I'm just trying to get everything out there now because I think that we're about to come over the hump on the roller coaster and it's time to get rolling. I'd like to get through June and be able to roll this out.
That's fine. If he has a plan for Centennial, he can submit that to, either Dee or Sandy. I just didn't know that you guys had that in your back pocket.
We have that plan, we can share that with staff to look at.
Okay, that's fine. Then that can get on the agenda for June here.
I might have it right here.
So maybe at the end of June, we can start setting some public hearings,
It's somewhere here.
roll it out to the Freeman and, agencies so everybody knows it's coming. They can write their story on it and we kinda know ballpark numbers.
Right.
Can't remember exactly.
Anything else we wanna see for June 9th? That's all I got.
Anybody else for them? Announcements. Leo, you got anything?
No, I think we covered a lot of topics.
So next week, Monday.
Tom, I was gonna move to you next.
So next week, Monday, we're gonna see a lot of the actual work happen on West Capitol. They're gonna bring in a mill on Monday and Tuesday. The surfacing of that is gonna be happening on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday of next week. So West Capitol next week. Don't drive down it, please, if you really don't have to, unless you live on that road. We're gonna be doing extra signage up by Quick Trip, Vedelson and stuff like that. We've been having a lot of trucks drive through there from 83. I've been working with, state, DOT trying to alleviate that as much as possible, but people aren't listening to signs, the end result. So we're gonna be adding some more signs, and I'm probably gonna be talking with, PDC if they can give us a little more support, especially next week, cause we don't want that asphalt getting ruined as they're paving. Speaking of that, Highway 83 is gonna be moving south, going, pulling out of the area that they're in, going Oakwood to Gulf, starting the following, so June 9th, so not next week, but the following week. So I was just in a meeting today, they announced that. There's updated on that, link that was provided a while ago and still on our village website. We are looking for a DPW laborer right now, so we are accepting applications. So if anyone knows anything, and other than that, splash pad, we made some repairs today on the splash pad, and we will be hopefully getting that online tomorrow. We had some pipes underground that were cracked, and we dug those up and repaired those today, and there's just a few more fittings and stuff that are leaking on that. Hopefully we'll be starting that building coming up pretty soon. That was budget approved, so we can work on that unit a lot easier than what we currently have existing on there. Other than hometown coming up, we have the banner up for hometown, but we are starting to, meet a lot more with staff and Sam here, and we're trying to get that off the road and running, because that's right around the corner here, so that's coming up.
Was there any other talk about opening up all those plumbing controls, all those pipe controls over at the splash pad and just putting a roof over all that?
Yeah, so that's the building that I was talking about. That's what we ran through the budget this year, so we will be working on that here shortly. Hopefully, we're making the decision at the staff level if we're gonna try to start that before or after hometown. Right now, it's kind of looking like after hometown. Just because we don't want a big muddy mess there, trip hazard and everything else while we're constructing that building. But the whole process of that building is to build on the existing foundation, so we have better access at it. Right now, those cabinets are so tight that we cannot work on anything in there, and it was like a relatively cheap design, but we're gonna have staff erect a little building around that, so we have better access to get at all those plumbing fixtures and everything inside that cabinet. So, yeah, that's all I have.
Biggest thing with hometown is we are looking for volunteers, so if you know of anyone, send them my way and I will happily sign them up for some shifts. We have our fishing clinic in Hartland this upcoming Saturday. We have 2 sessions, one at 9, one at 10, and we have 20 kids in each session, so we're full with that. And then our concerts in the park kicked off this last week, so hopefully we'll see some of you guys around on Thursdays, and then T-ball games start next week.
And your Delafield Fish Clinic was a big success?
Yes, it went really well, despite the weather, but kids had fun, caught a lot of fish, went really well.
I don't have much. I just got back from vacation, so I'm still wrapping my head around everything, so.
A couple things last week. We had our annual compliance tests on our flow testing for our SCBAs and our face pieces that we have to wear for structural firefighting. I was made aware that we'll be needing our hydro testing on the bottles for all the packs that we purchased about 4 years ago now. That's due next year, so I'm seeking out with McQueen Emergency right now to get a quote for how much it's going to cost for our flow testing or hydro testing next year for our bottles. Otherwise, that's pretty much all I got going on. Playing catch up as well.
Just 2 quick announcements. Since the last board meeting, we graduated our spring Citizens Academy class. A lot of good feedback from that. We actually did it right here in this room. And then Officer File completed field training as of tomorrow. So he'll be out on solo patrol starting tomorrow. And that's several weeks early, which is a good thing. He really excelled through the road training program. And then I did find those the diagrams for Centennial It was at our December 17th special village board meeting. It was on a Tuesday, so those plans we can ship back out. I think, Greg, correct me if I'm wrong, that was comparable size to what's at Hartbrook, or was it a little smaller, or? Same dimensions. And they offered like 3 different orientations on it in that open space to the west of the current field. Leaving the football field, the hardball field, and then having a second field net to the west of that.
Thank you, Chief. Anything else?
That's it?
Nothing.
I'm good.
You guys covered it all.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adjourn. It's been moved and seconded to adjourn this meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. This meeting's adjourned.